Oh, thank you so
And
much.
his only issue is that it's too male-centric. They should have some women also, women speakers.
All right. So, ladies and gentlemen, we have begun to go live. All right. So the process has initiated.
All the best to all of you.
Yeah. So we'll
Yes, guys.
begin in the next few seconds as the clock strikes 5. All right. That's when Kiran
His
will
only
begin.
issue is that it's too male-centric. They should have.
I hope all our friends, family, colleagues have the WAF TV link with them, or they can just Google.
It's 5 o'clock.
WAF TV. So, Kiran ma'am, do we wait for Mr. Kupaswamy or do we begin? What do you suggest? It's already 5.
I think let's start.
I think let's begin because we'll have the introductions initially. So I think by then he should be able to join. So Kiran ma'am, all yours.
Thank you. Good evening, friends, and a warm welcome to the WAF Gurus webinar episode 25. We simply call it the WAFinar. And today we shall discuss the topic, how to master supply chains in 2022. And here I would request Team WAF to share the details.
Okay,
you are watching. Yeah.
Please go on. Yeah.
You're watching the WAF Gurus webinar, 25th of the WAF Gurus live series, which started in March 2020 in the very first week of the lockdown itself. By June 2020, the viewership had crossed the 1 million mark for WAF Guru Live, and it continues to grow. This WAFinar, as we would like to call it, is happening at a time when we thought life was nearly back to normal. But we seem to have gone retrograde with the new variant Omicron spreading fast with night curfew and weekend curfews and 50% manpower at work from home. But then life must go on, wheels must keep rolling. So today we'll be discussing the topic that I mentioned before, how to master supply chains in 2022. And to discuss this issue, we have a very impressive lineup of speakers. First, Kalpesh Pathak, automotive SCM veteran. He has more than 3 decades of experience in automotive consumer durables, core engineering companies. He's worked with Fiat, General Motors, Blue Star, Dresser-Rand, and Khatao Junker. He has extensive experience in the domain of supply chain, purchasing, program management, and manufacturing. All through his career, he was involved with 5 greenfield plants, establishing supply chain and business processes, and contributed by leading industry-wide practices in the domain of purchasing and supply chain, which has helped the industry to become more robust, agile, customer-centric. He's been a member of SIAM, Siam Logistics Committee, and the CII, Committed on International Trade. A speaker at various conferences, voicing his thoughts on making industry competitive and grow with appropriate use cases. He has also mentored many upcoming executives and young leaders. We are pleased to have you, sir. Second is Mr. Ram Kuppuswamy, Chief Procurement and Supply Chain Officer, Hero Motocorp, a global supply chain, commercial and operations leader with over 20 years of experience working in Fortune 100 technology companies. He's been associated with brands like Airtel, Nokia, Microsoft, A.T. Kearney, and VMware. He's worked across the globe, starting in the USA, then Europe, China, India, and Singapore. A Bachelor of Engineering in Computer Science and Engineering. He holds an MBA degree from the IIM Ahmedabad. In Hero Motocorp, Ram is leading all the supply chain and procurement requirements for the organization and leading a team of over 400 professionals covering strategic sourcing, inbound logistics, supplier development, supplier relationship management, vendor upgradation, and materials management. He's also leading the global sourcing, new product development, enhancement of technology of local suppliers, as well as developing new alliances with global supplier to enhance the value proposition. His leisure activities include running half marathons, playing blitz chess, and learning about World War II strategies. Welcome to the WAFinar, sir.
Nice to be here. Thanks.
Mr. Vijay Kalra, he's the head, Mahindra Institute of Quality and member, Central Safety Council, Mahindra Group. a mechanical engineer and PG DBM in marketing from IMT Ghaziabad. He has nearly 4 decades of experience with leading organizations like Ashok Leyland, DCM Toyota, Toyota Motor Corp, Class India, and General Motors. He has a natural affinity for all-inclusive growth with special focus on quality, safety, sustainability, and diversity. He has an in-depth understanding of the Toyota production system as well as other global manufacturing best practices like General Motors' global manufacturing system. His current job involves implementing business excellence model TMW, that's the Mahindra way. Before this, he was the Vice President, Manufacturing and Quality for General Motors in India, member of Executive Committee of General Motors in India. He was the Executive Director and CEO, NVML, and the Chief of Manufacturing Operations Auto Sector, M&M Limited. He's also been the chairman of the Manufacturing and Quality Academy under Mahindra Leadership University, where he focused relentlessly on skill building and lean manufacturing and introduced cutting-edge technologies like robotics, automation, and Industry 4.0, which led to 7 Mahindra plants getting TPM at one go. We are honored to have you at the WAFinar, sir.
Thank you.
Fourth is Mr. Melanjan Roy. He's the Director Purchasing at Faurecia Group India with over 25 years of experience in this field. An engineering graduate, an alumnus of Great Lakes where he did his MBA, a postgraduate diploma holder in materials management, a certification in business law, and a certified coach from International Coaching Federation. He's now in this top tier 1 automotive that has its headquarters in Nanterre, Paris, with a revenue of 18 billion euros. His earlier jobs were at Denso, a Japanese company, Visteon, a US-based company, Radel, and prior to Faurecia, he was with Motherson as their purchasing head. A hearty welcome to you, sir.
Thank you, ma'am.
Then we have Mr. Sanjeev Upadhyay, co-founder, Metal Pal, and an SCM veteran. He's an engineering business leader with 21 years of track record of a half a dozen greenfield and brownfield supply chain setups across the world, including the war-torn Iraq. From make-to-stock products to engineer-to-order products. He's worked across the automotive as well as the oil and gas industries for various big names such as GE Oil and Gas, Sumitomo Group, and Baker Hughes. Sanjeev's expertise in supply chain excellence has pushed him to develop an engineering sourcing portal specifically aimed at complex metallurgical engineering-based solutions, saving precious time for businesses across the world. A one-stop shop for your sourcing needs in all form, fit, and function. That's Metal Pal for you. Lovely to have you with this WAFinar of ours, sir. Welcome.
Thank you, ma'am. Hi, everybody.
And last but not the least, the man behind the show, Anuj Buglani, the founder and CEO at the World Auto Forum, which connects the auto and mobility industry in 125 countries. He's also worked with Honda Cars and General Motors. Last year, he launched WAF Ventures, the global investment and advisory arm of WAF, where they work with startups, investors, VC, and PE firms around the world. A graduate in engineering, he did his MBA from IIT Delhi and studied law at the Faculty of Law, University of Delhi. Anuj, it is you who should be really welcoming everybody. I don't know if I can welcome you.
Well, absolutely. We can all together welcome our finest SCM experts in the country or probably the world. So thanks a ton, gentlemen, for taking out time for this very important program where we all are going through such disruption.
Yeah. But now let me introduce you to our partners. Annual OEM Gold Partners, Morris Garages, MG, and Powerway, that's Volkswagen. Annual Gold Partner, Gallops Motors, One Moto India, and Abbott. Annual partners, Focus Engineering India and Focus Technologies Dubai, and MotorUncle.com. Our media partners are Patriot, Newspaper, and WAF TV. So now, over to you, Anuj.
Thanks a ton, Kiran ma'am. Really appreciate. So I'll just quickly show the topics of discussion that we had outlined, for today, and here they are. And I will begin with, the things that we had possibly made into an action plan back in August 2020 when we had done a similar program for SCM. And back then, the key takeaways of the program were that we need to digitize and automate the warehouses. We need to do retail forecasting and use it in a way that, instead of wholesale figures, and which already is happening in the industry. We are seeing that FADA is doing a lot of sharing of data points with ACMA. So that's already started happening in a much more official and a frequent way. Then we also thought, that we can have access to low-cost funds, tech for tier two suppliers with the help of OEM and tier one. Because eventually everything comes down to the tier two. You keep the supply, you keep the stock. The tier one and OEMs want to be just in time and direct online. So what is being done for them? Tier two, tier three, tier N, and then sharing knowledge in real time for running integrated, interdependent supply chain. These are the four key takeaways of the program in 2020 in August. So now how we fared on these points and what is the action plan for 2022 for agile, dynamic, flexible, resilient supply chains. Big buzzwords, but whether we can actually get them in action on a daily basis, that's the challenge and that's the opportunity as well. So we have these experts with us. And to all the people who are watching, you get 1 month of WAF CXO job service completely free if you're watching this program. How to avail, very simple. Just go to Google. Just Google WAF CXO jobs. Click on the first link. Put in your details. You are a CXO or a recruiter. Accordingly, click on the right option. Put your details. Put your year of birth, mail. It's very simple. Fill it up. In something to share, just put that WAFinar 25 as the code that you watched it. All right. Very simple. So you do it and avail this service. So I'll stop sharing my screen now. And let's begin this discussion by getting in Kalpesh ji in the conversation, who's a veteran of SCM, who's worked with General Motors, with the Fiat Tata JV. And so Kalpesh ji, the going has been a bit rough, especially with this chip shortage and the Omicron and so many things coming together. Big disruptions are happening. Lockdown, unlockdown, possibly another lockdown, first wave, second wave, third wave. What do you feel should be the mantra for 2022 for supply chains to make them agile, dynamic, flexible, and resilient?
Okay, thank you, Anuj. Thank you, everybody, and a very good evening to all the participants. It has always been a pleasure, Anuj, to be invited on your platform, World Data Forum. It's a community, as you rightly said, and I think it could not have been planned at a more opportune time than what we are doing today. So congratulations to you and WF. Now,
thank you.
Let me just begin, Anuj, on a lighter side. The title of this event, which you have said, that mastering the supply chain. Now, let me just say that it is impossible to master supply chain, okay? Because the day it is mastered, we all will be jobless, okay? So I'll just take it over from here. And last couple of years, I was fortunate enough to be part of the first event, which was done in 2020, Anuj, if I am not mistaken. And that point of time, you just recap the things, what we discussed, what were the takeaways, and where are we. So one thing which we have seen in last couple of years is that if supply chain stops, the whole world stops. So the titles which we use, like the 3 decades experience or 2 decades experience or veteran, I think does not hold good. Because let me just honestly admit that we all professors, what we have learned in 2020 and 21, I would say it was one of the best learning which all of us had. Personal note, I can say that they were the most formative years in my career. If there was no pandemic, probably I would not have learned certain things which I could learn in last couple of years. So we all see pandemic from a negative standpoint, but let me just say that personally I feel it was really an eye-opener, and I think it is going to lay the foundation on a positive side going forward, which will make the industry, the countries more and more promising. Now, let me just give a little bit uh, eye-opener in terms of where are we, because we are going to talk as part of the theme about how we are going to start or what we are going to do in 2022. But just on a quicker note, let me talk about few positives. We all know the demand is very strong, and that's where we all are required. So which is a very good positive. Demand is going to continue on a shorter to medium run for sure without any hurdles, and we all need to pull up our sleeves. Similarly, another good part is that large population of the country is vaccinated now with both the doses, and even children vaccination has started, which is a very positive sign. One more positive sign, we all know that government also is playing their part from the policy standpoint to boost the industry. We all know about the PLI schemes, scrappage policies, semiconductor manufacturing policy, EV incentives, both by central as well as state government. We have stable oil prices. We keep talking a lot about the EVs, but we know that they are not going to become an immediate reality in terms of the penetration. So definitely, ICE engines are going to continue from medium to at least semi-long-term kind of situation. So that's a good sign. Again, there are economic parameters where it states that the global trade volumes will rise by 5.4% in 2022 and 4% in 2022. So I think the entire global growth is going to continue. And last but not least, and I think today's discussion will focus a lot, I'm sure, including myself and other panel members, emerging and maturing supply chain with the intervention of technology. So these are all positives. Let me just speak about few negatives. Yes, as the anchor ma'am introduced that the Omicron cases are on the rise. I think it's a short-term kind of worry. I don't know. I cannot see through the crystal ball, but at least for a timing, at least 6 to 8 weeks, I think we'll have to be watchful. So that's a small negative, I would say. And because of this, I think a lot of state governments are putting certain restrictions, which will become a hurdle for all of us supply chain practitioners. So that may be a hurdle, and also it may dampen the market sentiments. Possible threat of lockdown, we don't know, but there could be. Again, high rate of infection probably will put some of our key manpower away from the work. That's another short-term challenge which we have to manage. I think medium to long term, there is another challenge. Industry is at the cusp of technological transition. We all talked about today. Again, we'll talk about from IC engine to EVs. So that's going to be slightly negative in the sense that, yes, we have to go, but I think we all are learning. So from that standpoint, we'll have to put efforts, and that's why I'm putting this in a negative kind of list. And we all know that without the raw material, we cannot run our factories. So raw material availability itself is a challenge, and the costs are also increasing. So it's a small negative. So yes, supply chain is going to be interesting, I would say. I would not use the word challenge. Yes, we'll have the material scarcity, freight prices will increase, there will be a lot of blank sailings. The demand forecasting challenges, though Anuj said that India in last 1.5 years has slowly moved to a retail-based kind of demand forecasting, because the data has started coming in, which is a good sign, but it's still going to be an interesting problem or puzzle to solve it. Port congestions, I think they are going to continue. Changing consumer attitudes. I think the consumers are changing. I think few minutes back in our introductory session, we were talking, all panel members, about mobility from the product to the service kind of transition. So changing customer attitudes also is going to become an interesting proposition for all supply chain practitioners. And last but most important, digital transformation, because I keep telling to my team and everybody that if we don't upgrade ourselves from a technology standpoint and don't adapt, I think we all are going to become redundant. So it's time to go back to college, start learning how fast we can adapt the digital techniques and digital solutions that will decide our future path. So with this introductory note, Anuj, I'll just leave it to you back. Thank you.
That's fantastic, Kalpesh ji, and it's very nice to get it as an add-on, as an extension of what you have spoken in the last program, it's surely going several steps forward, because that's the idea. Because we can keep talking and talking, but unless there is that IPDCA cycle with innovation, we keep acting, we keep checking, we keep doing, it doesn't make any sense. So getting in the conversation, a gentleman who is heading the supply chain and procurement for world's biggest two-wheeler maker, and his job has huge ramifications, not just for India but for possibly the entire world. So getting Mr. Ram Kupuswamy in the conversation, Mr. Kupuswamy. So we got to know in your hobbies that World War II strategies have been your favorite. So what are the kind of strategies you feel can be relevant to overcome this supply chain challenge?
Yeah, I think firstly, it's an area of clearly passion for me, World War II strategies. But back to the question that you asked me in terms of what's relevant here, I'll actually take a step back and start by acknowledging, I think Kalpesh as well spoke about it, acknowledging the role that uncertainty has to play in the coming year. I know we all talk about the level of uncertainty going up in the last few years. I do believe that it's going to be another year of continued, if not accelerated uncertainty that we shall see in the coming year. And this uncertainty, this volatility, I think sort of permeates both the supply and the demand side of our equation, right? Now, with such a situation, I believe that our ability to focus on 2-3 things is important. And by the way, these learnings that I'm going to talk about are clearly from, I should say, the experiences that people had during the Second World War. The first is the need for us to collaborate closely. And I think that comes with how closely we work with our partners, how closely we work with our dealers, how closely we work with the different stakeholders in the ecosystem that we operate in. This is a time to sort of focus on who are our most strategic partners and bring them in closer. And I think this starts with information sharing, extends all the way to ensuring that we are thoughtful of how we impact their business as much as it impacts ours. The second thing that I would say that's really critical is the use of technology. And I think technology, particularly in the last few years, there are a few technologies that have reached a level of maturity and which can choose to unlock ways in which we can deal with this uncertainty better. Whether it is better forecasting techniques, whether it is the ability to respond to a fluctuation in supply quickly, the ability to see and have visibility to where your supply is in different parts of the world. All of this, I think, has reached a level of maturity that allows us to now deploy that and hopefully tackle some of this uncertainty that we face. And the last thing I'll talk about is innovation, right? So I think the ability to think beyond our current constraints, think beyond what models have worked in the past, the ability to borrow from different industries and apply it to the industry that we operate in today. All of this is going to be rather critical to deal with the situation that we have. Everything I just mentioned, by the way, as I said, I've picked up through some of the experiences that both the Allied and the Axis powers had in the Second World War. At some point in time, if somebody's interested, of course, in hearing more, I can share a lot more stories. But I'll limit that for our conversation today. But those are the 3 things, which is collaboration, the use of technology, and innovation.
Great, that's fantastic, Mr. Kupuswamy. So, when we talk about, as even Kalpesh ji had mentioned, that the learnings which have been there in last 2 years since the COVID broke out have been immense, and they in a way trump our decades of experience possibly. So if somebody was to ask you, the top 3 learnings during this COVID era, what they have been and how they can be applied, what would they be?
So I think I think what the COVID era has taught us is that the market can be quite volatile, quite uncertain, and things can shift. Decades-old models can shift on a dime. To take a couple of examples here, erstwhile, I think there was this expansion for 30 plus years with a focus on globalization, with a focus on driving further and further efficiency through large scale clusters at scale which deliver efficiency. what the pandemic taught us is, hang on, wait a second, that a lot of these logistics and supply chains that we've taken for granted are no longer viable and have to be rethought relatively quickly. What we thought was in balance earlier actually showed us that we were not really in balance, and we put ourselves at risk through decades of sort of making decisions which were incremental and small at the time, but in the collective, in the larger scale, just showed that we increased the risk that we had in our supply chains. So the ability to sort of balance some of the risks that we take, so that we are able to have a more resilient supply chain, I think is a big learning that came through the pandemic. The second is, I think, the importance of being close to our people. And when I say our people, it's our employees, it's our partners' employees, it's our dealers, it's our customers. And the emphasis on being close to them allows us, of course, to ensure that from a business perspective, there's a level of continuity, but more importantly, I think it builds the brand, it builds who we are in our DNA. One of the things that Pavanji very proudly says at Hero is lives before livelihood. So I think that just resonates very well with my own personal values and the values that Hero carries, right? So that's rather important, and I think that came out quite candidly during the pandemic. The third thing I would say is, again, I go back to this topic of innovation, right? And I think that's rather critical because we are faced with problems that are unheralded. We are faced with problems that have not been shown to us for many, many years, if not decades, or never, ever. So how do we come up with new solutions that don't exist today? Like, how do I, for example, all of a sudden get a stamping factory set up in Baroda next to our factory in a matter of weeks, rather than the years that it takes typically to get something set up in a similar fashion. So it's just a lot of these are very unique challenges that we've never thought of before, but innovative solutions will lead the way.
I think that's beautiful. I think they are very profound and very deep. Three key takeaways. Fantastic, Mr. Kupaswamy. So switching gears and getting in the conversation, Kalra Sahab, who has been a WAF star and who has earlier in his role was heading all the manufacturing facilities of M&M, and now he is heading the Quality Institute and also part of the safety council. So many hats, Kalra Sahab, you have worn. So as a person from that standpoint, how do you look at supply chains and where do you see it unveiling in 2022? What are the quick things we need to master to really be ready for the disruptions?
So first again, Anuj, thanks for inviting me, and it's a very good panel, and I will be a very small person in this whole game. But let me just share some thoughts, and those are real life experiences of last 40 years and especially 10 years where I was responsible for supply chain as well. And we were producing close to 2,500 four-wheelers and close to 2,000 tractors every day. Okay, and believe me, contrary to believe that the word would have been difficult, I felt it was not that difficult. Okay, and just and while I will be worried about what happened in last 1 or 2 years or something, but I feel that most of our behaviors and this thing should be for 98% of our working life, not for 2 years. So these things will come and go. And on top of it, that if you were doing better earlier, then you will do better here also. And then competition, it's all about competition, which is a relative this thing. So if level playing ground changes and all lose a bit or all gain a bit, I don't feel it changes your position. So one has to think a bit more long term than get too much caught by short term. Then obviously history has to be used for learnings and use those learnings in future. And that's my current role. when I say Mahindra Institute of Quality is more about business excellence and TQM across the group, including whether it's a finance arm, whether it is IT arm. So talking to Mahindra IT guys, all these things, or Tech Mahindra and shipbuilding and agri and all those things. So a lot of learnings which we had over the years in manufacturing, especially auto, to percolate down to across organization. Now, first thing is that I feel that if we are talking last 2 or 3 years, whatever is happening, but for unfortunate human losses, I think is happening for good, because you can't be living in a world where everything has become stable. No? Okay. If that happens, then those who are doing well, they keep on doing well, and you will be at your position always doing the same thing. And we would have lived still in a world where the icing would have gone to western part of the world, and you must be doing the low cost work and be feeling happy about it. No? I think it has made to think differently. We don't have to really play a role of victim. No, I think that's a tendency. No, if things go bad around the world, we start just feeling a role of victim. When demand go up, we play a role of victim. That demand is high, I don't know what to do. Okay. When demands go down, we go play victim. I mean, sir, these are facts of life. These will happen, plus and minuses. Question is how good you do during those times. No? So leadership is always how good we do relative to others in difficult times. And I still feel that those RISE 3 pillars, which Mahindra choose a couple of years back, give answer to everything. No, the 3 pillars are accepting no limits. So first, most important thing in life is to raise your ambitions. No? First time in country, we are seeing those ambitions being raised that we will be a global player. We want to really beat the world. We want to take on the world and all those things. Fortunately, it has happened in auto industry to a larger extent. Okay, when we got so many multinationals coming or something, some of the companies decided to stop and take the fight. No, yeah, it took 5, 6, 7, 8 years of difficult time, but maybe 10 years or maybe 20 years. But today we can stand tall, and we have Hero, or Bajaj and all those things. This thing. And then on the other side, we have products like Thar. And when ma'am was talking about WAFinar, I was thinking that it's a time for she to start riding Thars and all those things. No? So we have other way also, XEV 7.0s and new Scorpio, which is coming, which will rock the world. No? So we have reached where, we should be happy about it. So I think these were the 3 things. And then, and some of the companies, and I believe Mahindra to a large extent, is practicing these things. That's the reason when I look at list of 20 top companies in India 20 years back, or 30 years back, or 40 years back, or maybe I think I looked at a list of 1990 or 1980s. The 3 companies are still there, and Mahindra is one of them. The rest 17 have changed. No? So if you are ready to keep on looking what's happening, if you are ready to change, if you are ready to change your behaviors, markets will change. No, okay. Why the customers will not think differently? Okay, but the customers don't think differently for one organization; they think for everybody, and we find answers. Tomorrow ICVs will become EVs. So what difference it makes? No, if we know how to do this thing. In Second World War, Ram talked about Second World War. When GM was told to produce patent tanks and guns and all those things, they were able to do it. And I strongly can, and with a lot of confidence, can say that if some of the factories which I have run, if today we have to do something huge differently, okay, we will do, because the basics don't change. The best practices, thinking doesn't change. The product changes. So I think it's a time to really move more towards. Peter Drucker wrote that book, Objective by. So I have to become more objectives, and somehow one thing which bothers me is that still a lot of thinking on enablers. Okay, in one of the organization which I was just talking yesterday within Mahindra only, and they said that we are starting a project, and I said, what's your objective of this thing? They said digitization. Digitization can never be objective of anything. Okay, objective can be lean, objective can be efficiency, objective can be speed, objective. And as nation or most of organization, one thing which again I will repeat is that we have to raise our ambitions, because if we don't raise our ambitions, no, okay, if we never had a Kapil Dev guy, a person like Kapil Dev in 1983, that I have come to win, okay, there was no way, because you would never have raised, no, rest 12 players never even thought of that, no. So we have to raise our ambition, and we have to learn speed. Okay, China has taught us that if we don't know how to move fast, okay, we all have heard that story of tortoise and rabbits, but I believe today successful rabbits don't sleep. Okay. Okay.
That's
so,
a good one.
And then we have to look at entire ecosystem. We can't be doing exceptionally good. I mean, if our ecosystem, the other vendors, suppliers, dealers support this thing, if they are not supporting, then it will not happen. So Kamal, I can understand in political this thing you can have Kamal in Kichad, but when it comes to industry or something, if you have to be this thing, the whole thing has to become Kamal. So I mean, all this Kichad has to go. I mean, if we all my colleagues here who are on the panel will believe, I very strongly believe that 70% to 80% of job we do, or maybe 70% things which we worry about and do, are not actually our job. That should be system driven. No. Okay. That should not be work which we should be doing. We should be doing only to innovate, find better answers, have better products, have better quality, better these things. No, we should not be wasting time on administrating so many things which should be given by the ecosystem. So we have to work on ecosystem together. Thank you.
Great. I think that was a mini motivational session by Kalra Saab. We covered a lot of assets, right from World War II to the 1983 World Cup. So basically, the point is that we don't need to worry. Things will come and go. And possibly, as Kalra Saab mentions, we are probably overreacting to this COVID thing. COVID possibly has come for the better, apart from the lives which are being lost. The system is changing, system is being reset, and a lot of new players are getting an opportunity now. So fine. So let that be the icing for India and for the other people who need that opportunity. So switching gears again and getting Mr. Melanjan Roy in the conversation. So Mr. Roy, from the standpoint of, I would not just say an auto components major, but also a company which is into very high-end electronics and driverless, vehicle technology. Where do you see, and we have been seeing, the huge challenge of chip shortage which has been happening. So vis-a-vis your company, vis-a-vis the ecosystem, how do you see this panning out for 2022, and what are the things we need to do now?
See, first, good evening to all of you, and wishing all the viewers and the panel members a very good and prosperous 2022. And I think it's a very valid question, Anuj. And just to put some perspective, actually, the whole crisis, whatever we have seen, it has been an opportunity for all the procurement and supply chain folks. So we are the talk of the town. And I was reading a data where if you have a supply chain glitch, so you have a 8% drop or 8% delta in your share prices. So which speaks loads on the efforts which a supply chain professional puts in. And I heard my previous panelist was telling that, yeah, we have to be positive. So just to put some more facts, in the month of December, India exported the highest 37% growth we have seen. Though we have been following the third pandemic, we have seen there is a new variant which has come, but in midst of which we are actually forgetting that there is a silver lining, and we have to all stay. And I take the example of Dhoni, like we have spoken about Kapil Dev. Dhoni always takes the match to the last over, and which always helps because the pressure is back on the bowler. So now, coming back to your question on chip shortages, now it has actually forced the automotive community to think loud that now where did we go wrong? Because there are some things which you can't plan well, and we have not been investing. We have cut our orders, and the quantities, the demand planning, everything was no, the schedule orders were cut, and we had our consumer friends, they grabbed everything, and then finally it's like you have defaulted on the contract, and the technologies shift did not happen properly. So it's like you pay for what you get. So that's how it is happening. And in midst of this, if you see on a broader perspective, totally, I was reading one interesting data which I would like to share with all of you. 170 billion was lost last year just because of pandemic. So which included climatic changes, which included typhoons, which included floods. Like there was a hurricane Ida, and in the US coast, 65 billion. And as soon as it hit the US coast, majority of the raw material suppliers came back with a force majeure. So which was not planned, and as supply chain professionals, you really can't plan it. So the only thing is really need to have a team which sticks together and fights it out as the 1983 team. And though Kapil led it from the front, but the rest of the team at the right moment came together and won the semi-final in the final. So that's how it happens. And you have to take the match to the last over, be confident, be resilient, be adaptable. And as Ram was also saying, I fully echo, these are the times when the stakeholder management is very critical, because your problems are your problems if you don't tell it. And if you ask support, definitely you will have a helping hand. And COVID has taught us that if your neighbor is unsafe, you are also unsafe. So now it's like the Xylo based organizational mindset has totally shifted, because we are playing the game to survive. So as for Asia, like we have our own organizational goals, but departmental goals, organizational goals are merged together. So each one has to perform well so that the organization wins. So that's how we are working, Anuj.
Fantastic, Mr. Roy. One quick question, as you mentioned that this chip shortage, and you were pretty open about it, that, the schedule orders getting cancelled and so forth. So how would this chip shortage issue, would this also go to the last over? How do you see this getting fixed in 2022? What are the things we need to do now?
No, as per the forecast, it's not going to get over. All the plans, if you see IHS data, they are predicting it will go up to the Q2, or might be it will go to Q3 as well. So it needs time, because this is all high capex investment, and that's why you have seen we have also opened up the industry for investment in semiconductors. It needs years of investment. So you can't really go like a ATM machine and get that money. It needs a foresight thinking, and unfortunately our technology was obsolete, and which it's like lesson learned, things gone wrong. So now people have jumped on it, and we'll see, and we are hopeful that things will turn around.
All right. So any secret sauce which you want to make public on fighting the chip shortage? Any secret sauce you want to make public?
No, there is no crystal ball, and everybody is trying to. By the way, the positive side of it, if you see in next year 22, we have 22 new product launches by all the OEMs. So might be there will be a delay, there might be a change, but there are 22 new product launches which the Indian market will go through, and they are all SUVs, and all the major players from Mahindra to Kias to the Volkswagens. Everybody is going to be there. So it's like we will evolve. I think this is a scenario where everybody has to evolve, and the fittest will survive. That's
absolutely. Well, we saw, when talking, as you mentioned about passenger vehicles, we saw a couple of car makers. I will not mention their name. They had stopped their billing to the dealers, possibly in second or third week of December, because they were already stock out. They did not have any more cars to sell. Whereas there were certain car makers who were billing even on the 31st of December till midnight. So it's been, it has not been democratic for sure. There have been extremes. Some people have had the supply, some were totally out of it. So let's see how the playing field can be leveled. And as innovation is the buzzword. So let's see how it pans out. So switching gears again, and let's see if Sanjeev has some solutions, as what he had mentioned during the pre-program conversation. He's coming up with this, digital application where such disruptions and fluctuations can be fixed, and quality, cost, time can be in our favor. So Sanjeev, all yours.
Yeah, guys, thanks. So it was lovely hearing to all the incredible workforce or intellect we have in the panel. And World War II is my favorite too, so I would definitely connect. It's just that during World War II we didn't have digitalization, and now is the right time to focus on digitalization. And I will explain at what level and which place we are. I will be trying to showcase that. So just give me a minute so that I can just share my screen. Yeah. Can you guys? Yeah, Anuj, you need to give me a right to share.
Okay, sure. All right. Please try now.
Yeah. All right, guys. So other than seeing yourself on the screen, so guys, like I said, I've been Chief Executive Officer for GE Oil and Gas Hydral side of the business, and now I've chucked all of those things, and I've come up with a new company which is called Metalpal, which is basically an industrial sourcing and product development solutions in all form, fit, and function. And I am going to tie this up in our conversation going forward with what our previous gentlemen have spoken about, especially the World War II part, where the whole world is actually reuniting or regathering and consolidating to produce supply chain results. So if we see, it is very normal for all of us to accept this, that there has been a huge supply chain disruption in heavy engineering and other metal dependent industries. Underlined, this itself has underlined the need for a multiple source supply chain, which is low cost, agile, simple to use, and flexible. From all things which we hear, this is exactly what we require at the moment. You see the GDP, it shrunk almost 23.9% because of coronavirus. And these data are April to June 19 versus April to June 20. I don't know what 21 holds. All sectors were down except agriculture, and agriculture was also not something to be very happy about because it was almost 3.4% growth. So now all the companies, including all the gentlemen who are sitting here, would be faced with a catch-22 situation for the industry. So I'm just diving in a little bit deeper into, zeroing down on some of the issues which you guys would be facing. One, the companies want to move away from their over dependence on single source suppliers. I'm just being diplomatic on the slides, but we all know the whole world this is the positive which Corona has given us, and that is the whole world's dependence on one country, which is China, has been shaken up to the roots. And suddenly they've got up that they want to look at Southeast Asia and the other countries which are also there around the world. Now, the catch-22 is, yes, you want to develop more sources, you want to develop more resources, but the qualification and other financial limitations are also there, because with the top line going down, hiring people is not a good option. Underutilization worries are going to be there. At the same time, capital expenditure is a complete no-no, because you don't want to put an entire plant just to underutilize it or just run it for one shift. So some of the irrefutable challenges which we are facing right now are on your screen. And the solution to which is what we are proposing or what we are developing right now, it is already there in the market, is a sourcing tech platform. And by the way, it is not just a sourcing tech platform. There are several sourcing tech platforms doing rounds, but this is a sourcing tech platform which will also help you develop your components, because we will also have a shared service center which has the expertise of metallurgists, supply chain, as well as other design engineers. So the solution, one-stop shop, MetalPal, optimized resources, verified supplier and customers. We will be having a list. Tomorrow if Ram needs somebody that I want a two-wheeler, this component to be supplied, we would already have a global repository of suppliers who can then be quickly qualified at a short notice without Honda really giving or putting a lot of resources on that. So this is basically, people keep saying industry 4.0. This is, I'm talking about sourcing 4.0. So we are talking about the next level of business process outsourcing. Ease and top class sourcing. We also have consultancy or hand holding suppliers. So again, your vendor development costs, because we will be having several customers, would get distributed or over several customers, and it is not that the whole cost of your vendor development goes to your bottom line. High-end quality sourcing, end-to-end fulfillment center, and customized products. So the key is tech platform, on-demand manufacturing, industrial marketplace, shared service center, supply chain expertise, and engineering expertise. And when we come to on-demand manufacturing, or before going to on-demand manufacturing, let me just show you the target industries which we are targeting: oil and gas, renewables, power, shipping, heavy engineering, locomotive, auto, and basically, the subcategory industries like forging, casting, cable, piping, etc. Our product offerings would be in all form, fit, and function. So when we call form, fit, and function, form, any form, you guys need raw material, you can come to my portal and get list of suppliers. You want it in a fit, which is, I'm basically calling a semi-component form, you can come to the portal, have access to best of the industry. And later stage, we'll also go on into rankings and 5-star ratings and other things. So casting process, forging process, deformation process, which also includes machining. And the third one, which I'm calling function, and function is joining and assembly process if you guys need welding support, or you just need to buy off-the-shelf products like some components, some products which you would be buying, which your sourcing guys would be definitely buying with some of your current vendors. If you see the global market opportunity here, every industry has grown around about 6%, 7% CAGR, which is compounded annual growth rate. But here you see that the global B2B market and the global B2B e-commerce market is almost slated to grow at 17.5%. So this is going to be at the prime center of our, as Indians, overtaking China globally. The whole idea is to use e-commerce market and get into space of more difficult engineering paths, because till now we are used to Amazon. We just go, we buy this, we go buy that, daily consumable products. Now we are talking about a more serious attempt using e-commerce industry to enable all the companies like yours to not have their own respective teams or sourcing efforts. We will do it for you, and you guys are going to benefit. This is the evolution plan: supplier management, shared services center, training platform, source to pay business model. So I just wanted to, I'll just stop sharing and would go back to what Ram was saying initially. And this is after World War II, what happened? everybody, and one of the gentlemen also explained that, the car started making tanks, and the companies started making aircrafts. So now the whole point is, in current company, there is a consolidation thing. Capacities are always empty in different plants. They are always available capacity. Suppose a company has 12 plants. There will be some capacity up and down because the line balancing is not perfect. Why not do the same thing at a city level? Why not do the same thing at a country level? Why not do the same thing at a global level? And that is where our technology, this portal, will tell you where, which machine, which aggregator is ready, and where his capacity and capability is lying there doing nothing, whereas you guys are struggling to find that capability and capacity. And sometimes I've seen in my oil and gas career and automotive career, we are buying items from Japan, we are sourcing items from US. Why do we need that? The main thing is that there is no the connection. There's nothing which is connecting all of us together as one big human or one big global factory. So optimizing our resources across the country is the next big thing, which will be part of the supply chain, and digitalization will definitely help us on that. For example, tomorrow I need a particular CNC machine with a particular capacity. I would just go to MetalPal website, check whether it is available in Surat, whether it is available 30 kilometers from me, whether it is available at 200 kilometers from me, and I just place the order. So this is the level to which we need to work out our detailed specs and detailed stuff, and then only it's a small attempt in a big way to change the industry from our side as MetalPal.
I think it sounds fantastic.
Over to you, Anuj.
It sounds really very promising. I think probably like a Zomato or like an Uber of assembly lines.
No, you're right, because obviously half of the time there are vendors in the industry, and all these dignitaries today, they would know this more than anybody else, that half of the plants are empty and half of the people don't find the right source.
So now we are almost till the end. So I think we have kind of used up our time for the first and the second round. So we will get into the key takeaway and the summarizing rounds. And before that, let's take up quickly a few questions that we had received. So one question that we have received, very interesting question: how to mitigate the risks and losses of the suppliers who are able to supply their products and services on time, despite the chip shortage or, finished product not available. What do they do? And it's anyone's take at it.
Anuj, let me I think this whole thought process, how we look at suppliers, we use the word partners, but we really do that in practice, So first belief is that I think one term which is used very repetitively is ability to negotiate. My feeling is negotiation is just division of the pie, but creation of pie happens when you work together and find answers. One of the most important thing which we can do is that when we say, there was a time when an organization or industry was seen as doing everything themselves, And this Honda and many other companies taught us to look outside. And we started outsourcing what we were doing. When you outsource work, you actually don't outsource responsibility. And once we start outsourcing responsibility, it becomes a problem, So if we have programs of learning, technology upgradation, teaching all these things to the possible extent OEMs can take it to tier 1s and tier 2s and tier 3. Most vulnerable are tier 2s and tier 3s, no? And when bad times comes, you are the most strongest, even when you are facing a problem. I think supporting them, and I think most of the industries have done this time very, very clearly. When they had payments to be done for suppliers, I believe most companies decided that, at least at Mahindra, I know, that was put on first priority. Okay. So we will not this thing, we will not look for 90 days and our terms and all those things. No. So this is something which is required. And Maruti and Hero is another example that you have carried those guys who were very small and not that learned at that one time, and brought them into up this value chain. And that helps you in long term your business objectives. No. Because I'm sure that Maruti and Hero, actually their strength is the supplier base they have, no, a very trusted, believed supplier base, no. And then you have other side, the system suppliers, where we worry the most. The big system suppliers with technology coming from outside, I mean, Melanjan represent one thing. I think we don't have to worry that much about them, but we have to worry for this thing and integrate the entire value chain in such a way that they have visibility of what you are doing tomorrow. More is that we become more and more transparent and integrate their operations with us. No? The way we do job loading within organization, tomorrow if I carve out a piece of it and give it to a supplier, then I say, I will not do it like that. No, why that? No, I mean, it should be integrated. No? And
Fair enough.
We should be worried as much for them. No?
So integration is where the solution lies. Fair enough. In fact,
and
I feel, sorry,
yeah.
Go ahead.
Please go ahead,
yeah. So Anuj, just let me add a small point. I think I completely agree with what Mr. Kalra said. And one thing is, see, there has to be a philosophy, because for the whole ecosystem that includes both dealers and suppliers for the auto OEM. And Vijay Saab clearly said that there has to be transparency and integration, and that's where I think technology can play a very important role. And what we can do, see, here we talk about risk mitigation. It's not possible for OEM to compensate the supplier who was ready with the parts. But if we have a right ecosystem, transparent system, and by which we can make sure that we communicate our bottlenecks much ahead of the time, so that each and every supplier can cut down on the unwarranted costs, and that will make sure that they remain viable, correct? If they leave, we leave. So that should be the philosophy.
Fantastic. In fact, what both of you mentioned, Kalpeshji and Kalra Saab, I'm reminded of the words of Dr. Goenka, the former MD MNN. He had come to the WAF media studio booth in 2019 at the Siam convention when we were the media partners. He had mentioned two things. He had said that first, communicate with the suppliers, dealers, and your teams. That's what Kalpeshji just mentioned. The other thing he mentioned was that every OEM has a clout. So the OEMs should not use that clout to demand a 90 days credit from the suppliers and instant payment from the dealers. So he had mentioned both these things, and what interesting coincidence they are mentioned now as things to do and not to do. All right.
So on this one, Anuj, I would like to come in. Here, Anuj. It's easy said and done. Easier said than done. Especially about the philosophy, especially when the top person's bottom line is linked with the kind of cash flows. I know the philosophy works, but if you are being judged on inventory turns, you will do anything to make that happen. So I really don't think we should leave this only to philosophy or goodness of heart or because I'm coming from GE background, so I know how good businesses work, how ethical practices work. At the same time, when you leave this ethics to other people, this problem will happen. It will depend on that person who is sitting with what kind of pressures, because on the other side you have to give shareholder value also. So I feel there has to be regulations which should step in here to protect the small time vendors, whether it is tier 4, tier 3, tier 2, tier 1, including tier 1 also, because a lot of times ONGC and these companies, they would bully their way out. It's not just the big four. Everybody does that. But I really feel the regulations should be much stricter and stronger. I'm very happy with MSME regulations. They really take care of these small time suppliers. But then there is a need to step this up too. So the government also needs to step up their game on this.
Fair enough. So, gentlemen, do we now begin to enter the 30 seconds key takeaway and summary? Because already it's, or can we take one more question? Because that second question is also interrelated. The question was, I leave it to you. It is that how are the tier 2, tier 3, tier N suppliers' interest taken into consideration? They have neither direct access to resources nor much say in the ecosystem. Anything on this, gentlemen?
So Anuj, let me pitch in, and I would say necessity is the mother of invention. And last couple of years, let me tell you, if it was not COVID, probably the automotive industry, as we know that the supply chains are very complex. So everybody had a mapping up to the tier N, what you just asked in the question. But let me tell you what happened. That one of the good things which happened is that due to this pandemic situation, I think most of the OEMs could map their supply chain to at least tier 5 and tier 6, which I am witness. And when I keep talking to my friends in the supply chain fraternity with the OEMs, I think most of them have done it. Now, let me tell you, like Sanjeev spoke about few minutes back that it is easier said than done. But let me vouch for it for the auto industry that each and every OEM has gone up to the tier 2, tier 3, tier 4 to address their woes. Now, I will not say that they were like done as a part of culture, but as part of the necessity, because we had to meet the end customer's requirement. Okay. And that's where I think whatever kind of support was required, I would say not 100%, but to the extent possible, each and every OEM has done it. Okay.
Great. Fair enough. Fair enough. So, do we now enter the summary part now? So, can we begin with Mr. Ram Kupuswamy, the 30-second summary and key takeaway for the session?
Thank you. No, I think this has been, at least from my perspective, a very enriching session for me. I have not spent as many years as many of the others, I think, on this panel in the auto industry. I've had experience in some of the other industries out there, but auto is relatively new to me. But it's fascinating to firstly see that a lot of the challenges that exist here exist elsewhere as well. And some of the other industries have found ways to deal with some of this. And I'm excited to be able to at least see if I can draw on those lessons and apply them here. And with respect to a couple of the key things I heard today, I think the message around working very closely with tier 1 UN partners is quite clear. I think the need for us to adopt technology and digitization, not necessarily for its own self, but towards business objectives, is also quite clear. And I think also, there was somewhere, there was a conversation around how do we, as an ecosystem, work together with our employees, our dealers, everybody else. And so those remain, I would say, key lessons for us in 2022.
Beautiful. I think that was fantastic, Mr. Kupuswamy. Really fantastic. All right. So, Mr. Roy, your key takeaways?
Yes, I think it was very enriching Saturday, well spent with all the panelists, and I hope the viewers have also enjoyed it. So key takeaways, I think we can all do it. I think that's the key message we have to, the mind has to know that, yes, the battle is not over. I think once we say it's over, it's over. So we have to continue it, and basically rethinking our objectives as purchasing. We sometimes are daredevils. We always have cost pressures, but this is the year when we have to really think value. We have to drive continuity. we have to make sure that we are resilient. Our team has to be there. Good mental health. Basically, mental health is something which IT and might be the other industries are really focusing well. Something which the other industries have to learn from them and be ready for the same conversation we can have in December 22, when we can see what happened in 21, what happened in 22, and then let's see.
Absolutely. So that can actually be a good white document across the entire COVID era,
Yes,
how
yes.
the things panned out. Yes, and by the way, on mental health, at WAF, we have done several sessions. We've done sessions with psychiatrists, psychologists, with top pulmonologists, all coming together, and we addressed this issue of mental health, physical health excessively and very frequently during our programs. So that's a very important point.
That's very good, Anuj. I think it's very, very like disruptive breakthrough if you can get into the automotive sector, because I think that's something which nobody takes care. So
yes,
it's
absolutely.
a
In fact,
blue ocean for you.
Yeah, we also partner with Abbott. Abbott makes these self-diagnostic COVID kits. Pan Bio, by the name of Pan Bio. So within max 30 minutes, you can get the results, and they're supposed to be pretty fast and self-testing. So that also we are trying to do, because the coronavirus can survive on glass, on metal for more than 72 hours, and 44% is asymptomatic. Now even higher. So we really can't afford to. And automotive is all about these services. So testing is the only way. Vaccination, the battle of vaccination has been won, by our industry. The next battle is to ensure testing and isolation, immediate isolation, if someone tests positive. All right. So, Kala Saab, your key takeaways?
Yeah, so I will again say that treat everybody in value chain as real partners. I mean, walk the talk. Have high ambitions. Speed will be key. I mean, we can't move this thing, and think long term, because short term flips will come and sometimes we will lose some money also. But I think money invested in bad times can be a huge investment for future. So think long term, because especially OEMs and big companies have to think this. While OEMs have started learning flexibility in a big way when they have setups or something, the typical Kanban thought of replenishing what is consumed or something, I think we should ensure that whole supply chain starts learning it more. And lastly, I feel that the auto industry is in a very good shape to help other industries. And when we are talking Atmanirbhar and all those things, maybe Anuj, you can also take that lead and this thing, that maybe some of the learnings from auto industry to other industries, they are very, very common. It doesn't make any difference, and a lot can go there, and opportunities are much more there. So I will leave there. Thank you.
I think it's a stellar thought, Kala Saab. Many thanks for that. So Team WAF, let's have some brainstorming session of what Kala Saab just mentioned, thinking beyond automotive. Yeah. Great. Kalpesh ji.
So I think, Mr. Kalra, because we auto industry brains speak the same thing. So most of the things which I wanted to say is already covered by Mr. Kalra. So I will not repeat, but see, the theme of today's session was agile, dynamic, flexible, and resilient supply chain. And I recall my friend, Australian friend, Dr. John Gatorna, and he has coined one terminology called dynamically aligned supply chain. Okay. So I think we all need to move towards dynamically aligned supply chain. There was a concept previously that we have to be disciplined, so decide the process and follow it. But now we need to dynamically align. And how we can stay dynamically aligned, I think most of the point is covered by Mr. Kalra. But I would just like to add a couple of points. One is, I think, visibility of the whole supply chain. I would say, yes, we have improved a lot, but I think still there is a long way to go. And that's where industry needs to focus going forward, number one. Number two, I think, high involvement of the problem solving. So see, there are problems, but we need an engaged team. We need high involvement of all the stakeholders, and the decision making has to be bottoms up. So these are the points which I would like to add beyond what Mr. Kalra has added. And I think that will help us to move forward with a much silver lining. Thank you.
Great. That's fantastic. That's fantastic, Kalpesh. You really, really appreciate. So Sanjeev, your key takeaways for you?
Yeah, for me, the key takeaway is keep watching at that space of Metal Pal, because that is exactly what Mr. Vijay and Ram and Kalpesh and Nilanjan, whatever they have said, Metal Pal is an attempt to exactly do that and make it transparent. My dream is to have it on your mobile so that you can actually see the progress of your components, your parts in some factory down there in New Zealand, probably.
That's great, Sanjeev. So I think you have overly promoted Metal Pal on this program. So now I think we should get a commission when you do your sales.
Absolutely. So Anuj, WAF is always welcome for any kind of commissions, man.
We're just kidding on that. So with that, so gentlemen, it's a wrap. I think this was a very important program, priceless knowledge we have all shared, and I'm sure the WAF community would be really equipped and adept to adapt to the uncertainty with all the tools, innovations, and all the things that you have shared in the last 60 minutes. They are simply priceless. Nothing more can be said. So back to you, Kiran ma'am.
Thank you so much, Anuj. I have been following this session very keenly, very intently. I'm not in the auto industry. I'm not in the corporate sector. I'm a broadcaster, a media person. But I feel that this WAFinar has been a huge lesson in management, in good, efficient management, which is applicable to just about any industry. You are auto veterans. You are giants of the auto industry. You are thinking on a global level. You have appealed to find solutions through digitization. You have launched strategies, worked out strategies almost on a war footing, taking inspiration from World War II. Wow. And most importantly, very responsible citizens of our country. You realize how important supply chains are to keep the wheels rolling for our economy to keep growing. And that's what is going to, you people contribute 7% to the GDP, and your mindset shows it. You're actively working at it. So it was really a pleasure to have you fine gentlemen on board to listen to you. And we hope to have you more often on our WAFinars. A huge thank you to all of you on a personal note and on behalf of WAF. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank
Thanks
you.
a ton.
Thank you.
You rock.
You rock. Each one of us rocks. Thank you so much. Have a great day.
Bye.
Thank you. Let's stay safe and let's stay positive.
Stay safe, guys.
Positive only here.
Yeah. Not corona positive.
All right.
Okay, bye guys. Stay in touch.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Jerry sir. Thank you, Jerry sir. Thank you, Kunal, for the beautiful.
Thanks, Anuj.
Thank you, gentlemen.